What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 135
35.
on this Monday, December 9th, 2024. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green with you. The transfer portal is open. It's chaos in college football, but the portal taketh, it also giveth. We'll run through all the names that have hopped in for Oklahoma already, but we'll also look ahead. What can Oklahoma add? What are the positions of need now that the window is open? We will discuss. We will dissect. Of course, we also have our bowl assignment, Oklahoma and Navy in the Armed Forces Bowl. Not really what we all kind of thought of even a couple of weeks ago. We'll give some initial thoughts there, and we'll do a little basketball recap as well, as both those teams just keep on winning, both into the top 15 of their respective AP polls. Pretty wild, as Jenny Baranczyk and Porter Moser both getting lots of winning to start their seasons. We'll talk about that on the back end. But gentlemen, like I said, transfer portal's open. Those who are with us at this time of year last year knows that transfer portal in some capacity is going to pretty much lead the show, every show for weeks now. It's kind of just the nature of this time of year. Some big names for Oklahoma have hopped in. We want to talk about those to start, and then we'll kind of look at what Oklahoma can do to add in the portal. But let's get into some of the big names first, starting with the most obvious being Nic Anderson. So Nic Anderson, I don't think has officially entered his name yet, but from our own Matt Zenitz last week, intends to enter the transfer portal, and he'll be moving on. Obviously missed basically this entire season due to injury. Some thoughts here and reaction. Doesn't feel like a total stunner, but it also is one that you still kind of hoped maybe could be back on this team next year. Obviously, we all know what Nick's capable of when he's healthy. Had a massive 2023 season, but just couldn't get on the field this past year. Obviously, played just a handful of snaps in that Tennessee game before being sidelined the rest of the season. Thoughts here, guys, as Oklahoma loses a guy who is capable of being a number one wide receiver when he's healthy, but that's kind of been the problem is getting him healthy and being on the field. But obviously a big blow, nevertheless, to lose a guy of Nic Anderson's caliber here in that wide receiver room.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks losing a guy of that size and that talent. I mean, we saw what he could do when he was healthy, last season. But, 2 of his first 3 years at Oklahoma now have just been kind of hampered by injuries. And I know there's been, reports out there about, the frustrations that he might have had with, how his injury was handled this year. And, it's unfortunate that he basically missed the entire season, played a handful of snaps in that Tennessee game, just never got right. Not to say it's a huge surprise that he ultimately decided to jump in, but it's unfortunate because we've seen what he's capable of. Obviously was their, second leading receiver last year behind Drake Stoops, freshman All-American, obviously a guy who will, regardless of what happened, where he goes now, he's going to be remembered for that game-winning touchdown in the Red River rivalry. So he's a guy who carved out a, little space of his own in Oklahoma lore. It's just unfortunate that, his career didn't really, map out the way everybody expected to after that.
Initially I was surprised that he jumped in, just thinking about everything that he and his family have meant for this program so far. You talk about Rodney Anderson, his brother as well, who was a, all-time running back here. And then, have him with that Texas Red River rivalry catch in that season that he had last year, where he really seemed like he got things going. You were thinking, okay, he's going to have a reset this year and be back. But, after you hear maybe the allegations or the reports of what caused him to enter, maybe it makes a lot more sense now. A guy like that who's dealt with injuries a lot at this place, even if he's upset with the medical staff, as it may be reported, just having a change of scenery has to be a better situation when you're hurt that much at one place. Just something else has to change. Let's try something else. And if that's the case, and he actually does enter his name, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And you just wish him the best and hope he does well.
Yeah, the medical staff stuff is it's hazy, right? What exactly happened here? Most I'm sure fans are aware of what's kind of being said in terms of that he may not feel like his injury was handled properly, and the details of that. That's all kind of murky, and what exactly unfolded is hard to nail down for sure. So, you're kind of hesitant to get too in depth there. But as far as, the player, obviously I think the world of Nic Anderson as a player. You guys remember back before the season, before injuries completely ruined his year, I thought he was going to be the best receiver on this team, and I he had a massive year the year ago. Obviously missed his true freshman season due to injury as well. And you just hope that he's not going down a similar path on the injury front as his brother, who was also unbelievably talented, and just injury bug just couldn't get over it. And it, really derailed him having what should have been a long NFL career if he was healthy. Rodney Anderson was a monster. And, it feels the same way with Nic. Like, if he's healthy, he is an absolute beast. But you got to stay healthy. You got to find a way. And I don't, who knows what the answer is to that. And we'll see where he winds up. I would imagine he has will have a great market. I mean, who wouldn't want this guy with everything he brings to the table? But obviously a blow. And we'll see what happens with the rest of that wide receiver room. That's probably a position we're going to talk about more in just a little bit. But certainly a notable loss there with Nic Anderson. Again, we'll see what happens with the rest of that room. As far as another big name that, hopped in the portal this week, Bauer Sharp also. And he is officially in, as of just a little while ago, as we record this here on Monday afternoon. This is a complicated one for Bauer. What a weird year for him. He was Oklahoma's leading receiver, which we talked about, a couple of weeks ago. He was really the only offensive weapon on the team that was there all year. And I'm pretty much literally, I think is he the only guy who never missed a game, whether it was for Arnold being benched or all the other positions getting injured. He was kind of the only constant force on the offense. For better, for right or wrong, he became a major punching bag for OU fans this season. Obviously had some really rough moments. Didn't exactly go out on a high note with that horrific interception against LSU. But as we talked about, he also has not really done a lot of favors with the way they tried to use him.
Exactly.
What do you guys kind of make of his 1 year run? And you kind of, again, we were hard on him, but from a personal level, you kind of feel bad for him a little bit because he was asked to do so much more than he probably should have been. And so that, is it really fair to dog him the way he's been dogged and the way it's been talked about since he put his name in the portal? It's a little bit of a shame, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like, it is what it is. It didn't exactly go as planned, his 1 year in Norman.
Yeah, I think the word I would use to describe his season here is complicated.
Yeah.
He started all 12 games at tight end. Like you said, finished the season as their leading receiver, which, isn't saying much because the passing game was kind of non-existent for much of the year. But 41 catches, 300-something yards, 2 touchdowns. As just a tight end, those are solid numbers. But when you're kind of shouldering the load for the passing game, it's not great. Again, he had his moments. You remember the fake punt where he hurdled a guy at Missouri. Had his low points. The failed trick play at Ole Miss, the even more of a debacle trick play in LSU that kind of really buried Oklahoma. Down 2 scores there, dropping a wide open touchdown against Alabama, even though they won that game. It's just, some early season penalties that, overturned some bigger plays, struggled with blocking early in the year. To his credit, I think he did better in that regard as the year kind of progressed and he got a little bit more comfortable. But I agree with you. He was asked to do probably more than he was comfortable with, and it showed. If you just looking at him as a pass catcher, I thought he was decent tight end, certainly better than what Oklahoma had last year. But it was a complicated season. He was like simultaneously Oklahoma's most reliable offensive weapon, but also its most confounding offensive player. It was just a weird fit, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Just did not seem to work out.
Yeah, it's pretty much what I said when we were talking about Bauer Sharps at the end of the season on our last pod. Just all tight ends aren't created equal. Like the position itself, there are certain guys that play a certain way in that position. There's guys that are, block heavy guys. There are guys that are like the pass heavy guys in that position. I know it's versatile, but I think the coaches just got, with the circumstances, they got too fond of his versatility, and they tried to do more things than they should with Bauer Sharp. And that's maybe because they were back into a corner with all the receivers out.
Sure.
Or just liking the guy that much, but there were just things that didn't make sense where you put Bauer Sharp. Putting him in a jet sweep, it makes people start getting upset with Bauer, even though that's more of a coaching decision there. Why would you run that play? You know what I mean? Like certain stuff like that happens. Now the LSU pass, that's him. He should know better than that. He played quarterback at the time. You don't just throw the ball up in the air. That doesn't make any sense. But there were just they just didn't use him the proper way. And he didn't really execute in the things that he was asked to do, and it's just that's what happened. So it wasn't a surprise that he entered the portal. That wasn't one of the shockers for me. So like I said last time, just wish him the best.
Yeah, I do think from an Oklahoma perspective, if you're a fan, looking at next year, I don't mean this in a way to just dump on Bauer Sharp one more time on the way out here, but I think it's a good sign that Oklahoma's going to try and get serious about upgrading the position. I mean, he's had another year. You feel like and this is a little bit of speculation, but you feel like if Bauer wanted to be back and was going to be the number one guy and Oklahoma was ready for him to be back, that they would just do that. Even with, it had a bit of a rough go this season at times from a production standpoint. I think it's a good sign for Oklahoma's prospects next year that they go into the portal, and they're going to have to because Jake Roberts is graduating, and we don't know what else is in that room. It's a lot of just nothing but unproven talent at the rest of the position. So, it's not the worst thing for Oklahoma to, again, have to make over the spot. It's not something you want to continue to revolving door, have different guys every year, but it's not the worst thing moving into next season. I think most fans would probably agree with that. So we'll see. A weird year for him. I didn't hate the idea of him even hanging on the team and kind of just being truly like, you catch passes, almost even as a big slot receiver.
Yeah.
Because he can do that. But him trying to make him this Swiss Army knife, it didn't work at all, horrifically.
Yeah, blocking defensive ends, things like that. It just wasn't, that's not his best skill set.
Yeah, weird year for him. Like Tom said, complicated, to say the least. As far as other guys in the portal, I'll just run through real quick some of the other names. You guys can throw in anything you want. Some of the other big names, Caleb Hicks in the portal, certainly a guy that I thought would be something here at OU, just never really got an opportunity at all to see the field, especially had that big spring game. Just never really had an opportunity ever, any kind of consistent playing time in his 2 years. So he's in the portal. Elsewhere in that running back room, Emeka Megwa, Chapman McCown, a couple guys, obviously just depth guys that we never saw. Josh Bates along the offensive line, obviously made some starts at center. He's in the portal today. Some other walk-on linemen, Ty Kubasek, Evan McClure. I think Jaden Rowe is also in the portal, another guy who, local guy, has all the stature in the world. And you kind of look at him like, that's a freak. Again, never could really get snaps, though. In-state guy, we'll see where he winds up. Any other things that stick out from that kind of group? I mean, not a whole lot of shocks there. I feel like those are a lot more kind of names you'd expect.
Yeah, Jaquez Petaway.
We talked about Petaway.
Did we talk about
last Monday? But yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
And then obviously Jackson Arnold, who we had a whole podcast about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of these you're seeing kind of. I feel like this is a crass way to put it, but the trimming of the fat because of the roster restrictions that you're going to have. They had 130 something guys on roster this year. They're going to have to get that number down to 105 by the start of next season. 85 scholarship, another 20 walk-ons, it seems. So you're seeing a lot of these walk-ons guys like Ty Kubasek, Evan McClure, Emeka Megwa, Chapman McCown, leaving because they're going to try to find opportunities at probably smaller level schools where they can get a scholarship or have a better opportunity, especially now that the roster is being condensed. But, other than that, not too many surprises to this point. The Joshua Bates one is a little bit interesting because, again, he is a guy that started a couple games this year, still got 3 years of eligibility left.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they feel good with Troy Everett coming back, starting at center when he's healthy and being there next year. He's got 1 year of eligibility left. But, that's, I think, 9 guys from the 2023 signing class have already transferred out, including Jackson Arnold and Jaquez Petaway and Caleb Hicks and Joshua Bates now. So that class is slimming out a little bit. But, I mean, you expect attrition, expect more guys to transfer out, expect them to bring in some guys too. We've already seen them put out a few offers there. So we'll see what these next, 20 days and probably more hold.
Mm-hmm. I think it was a little weird. I mean, just confusing that Caleb Hicks never really got, more of an opportunity on the field. I mean, a guy like that, we saw some potential. He looks great, but, you end up getting jumped by Xavier Robinson there at the end of the year. And, you thought those snaps kind of would go to Hicks, but obviously Robinson was the best for the situation. But that was the other one I wanted to point out just because he had all the potential in the world. So he'll probably end up somewhere really good and show some of that. Yeah,
that Caleb Hicks, Dalen Smothers duo never really panned out that we thought we were going to have. And that that 23 class, another one of those guys that Tom referring to, not around. Others. We'll continue to monitor. There'll probably be more guys hopping in even before this show gets posted later on today. But we'll continue to monitor over on the website, oakland.247sports.com. Tom's got the transfer portal tracker. If you missed anything, they're all going to be there. All the additions, all the subtractions, all the everything. Great way to keep up. It's pinned on the site on the front page, so can't miss it. Head over there. Great resource throughout this busy time. Very easy to miss something, and that's a great way not to. As far as, again, the portal taketh, but it giveth. You're going to make additions here. I want to ask you guys, and obviously there are a number of specific names that have been mentioned to our VIP members already, guys that are making their way to Norman either today or expect to this week. Obviously, Oklahoma's already sent out a couple of offers on the offensive side of things. I wanted to ask you guys, as the portal opens today, what's the priority? Obviously, there are a number of positions that you could add to. And really, everywhere on the roster, it wouldn't hurt to have a guy, right, make a pickup. But for you guys, what is the priority? One or two spots that you think, above all, Oklahoma needs to get at least one or two difference makers at that spot going into next season, or it's going to be a problem. What's the priority in the portal for you guys?
I'll take quarterback for 500, Alex.
Yeah.
I mean, besides the obvious quarterback, I think depending on what else happens at receiver, that you're going to need to land one or two high quality receivers. We've already seen, talked about on the site that they're hosting a guy this week, today, Monday. Saw another offer go out to a Miami, Ohio receiver who was top 10 in the country in yards per catch this season, 9 touchdowns.
Reginald Virgil.
Yeah, Reginald Virgil. He's from just down the road from where Jaden Gibson grew up and played ball. Being familiar with that part of Orlando, Florida, Apopka and Winter Garden are like right next to each other. So I'm sure those guys are very familiar with each other. I know he obviously tagged Jaden when he posted his offer, and I think Jaden shared his transfer portal announcement yesterday with an eyeball emoji. So that's probably something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Wide receiver. I think we've talked about the offensive line. I think you feel good about center, left guard, and left tackle. You need to fortify the right side of that offensive line. And I think certainly at right tackle, you really need to upgrade there because you are losing Spencer Brown. You are losing Michael Tarquin. You don't know what you really have necessarily in Jacob Sexton, Jacob Taylor, because those are guys that have, battled injuries early on in their career. So you can't bank on them necessarily being healthy. You need to have a plan in place. And, it can't be like last season where, you try to fill some, just get some bodies in the room after missing out on some top guys. You need to land a high caliber tackle in this class and probably another piece or two on the offensive line to fill out some depth, but you need a high end offensive tackle. And I know that's easier said than done because, offensive line and defensive line are probably the two most coveted positions in the transfer portal, just in terms of, what they'll probably, just the scarcity and also just, the cost in NIL of getting a high caliber guy at that position. I think you probably need a defensive end because you're losing Ethan Downs, you're losing Caden Lord, you're losing not R. Mason Thomas, sorry. You're losing Trace Ford. We'll see if R. Mason Thomas tests the NFL draft waters, but you're expecting to bring back him and PJ Adewale. So you need to get another piece to that room. And then I think adding a safety just to fortify the back end and cornerback, someone to complement Eli Bowen because you feel like he's your number one guy going into next year. And then you have Jacoby and Kenai Walker presumably coming back too. So you have some pieces there, but if you can get a number 2 corner to pair with Eli Bowen, I think you'll feel great.
Mm-hmm. Tom listed all of them out there, man. That's the entire roster. But I think like tight end is I think a necessity, as we just talked about. You're not gonna have both of your 2 main guys from this season on the field with Jake Roberts also graduating out. So they've already offered Luke McGarry, the guy from out there from Tulsa, out there down the road. And so as a guy that I really want to see them go after is Tana Kozio out of Ball State. And I posted about him the other day, just like a 6'7" guy who caught 94 passes, 839 yards, and 8 touchdowns. I mean, that is exactly what you need. A guy like that who can produce those type of numbers, especially with his size. Like that could be really useful for OU, I think. So really want to see that. And obviously quarterback is the other one. Even if you stick with Michael Hawkins as your guy, you got to find somebody else that you can kind of be comfortable with going out there in case something happens, because obviously, something probably happens with Oklahoma at this point. Like, you got to expect that there's going to be injuries. It's ridiculous, but that's the way I see it. I think tight end, quarterback, because you said to give two. I'll just put those out there.
Yeah, I mean, the focus is the emphasis is offensively, right? Obviously, after the year you had, and you're having some turnover there already. I don't know what to make of the wide receiver room. I mean, Nic Anderson's in there already. We just don't know where the other four guys are, both in terms of their health as well as their status with Oklahoma. In Deion Burke's case specifically, NFL is certainly, I think, on the table for him.
He teased a little bit because he posted a picture of himself in his OU uniform.
So,
I don't know what that.
I still think either way you need
that's true.
One or two, but that becomes a major need if a couple more of these guys hop in. And again, we don't know, is Angelo Anthony going to be able to get back to being himself? He missed this entire season essentially after getting hurt. I mean, he's been out for a year and a half now. I mean, so that position is one of intrigue to me. And after this past year, that can't happen again. So it's like, go load up and get as many receivers as you can, basically. Get a couple, and they already are courting a couple of very productive ones. Tight end, obviously, as well. Defensively, I agree with Tom on cornerback. Eli Bowen was awesome, and they still think a lot of Jacoby Johnson. But if they're going to rotate as often as they like to, and that's what they've done, in the last few years. So I'm going to assume it's going to stay the same. They need another couple of reliable options there. You saw that hurt them at times this year, and Brent Venables was very open about that. After that LSU loss, saying secondary is the group we need to upgrade. And I think specifically within that is corner. Because at safety, you could use another guy. But I mean, Peyton Bowen and Robert Spears-Jennings, that's quite the duo back there to start with. And you have guys like Jaden Hardy and Michael Boganowski. Like that room is probably going to be okay. Corner, though, I'd like to see another body there. So we'll see. And like Tom said, too, defensive line as well, it kind of depends. I think you probably still need guys, but how much the emphasis is depends on Dominic Williams or Mason Thomas, or what are those guys doing? That's a question there as well. But offensively, without question, tight end, wide receiver, gotta have it.
Yeah, and a lot of this is fluid because look, let's be honest, there's tampering involved in college football.
Sure.
There are a lot of guys on this team who will be attractive to other teams to try to pull. Especially again, we talked about the scarcity of defensive linemen. It's like, you look at what Oklahoma has in a Jaden Jackson and a David Stone and Grayson Halton. Like, I'm sure there are going to be some whispers of teams trying to lure them away from Oklahoma. But if Oklahoma can stick, we talk about roster retention all the time. If they can retain those guys, you feel really good about that interior defense line in particular. Even though you are losing, Dejon Terry and Devon Series, like you feel good about that core of Jaden Jackson, Grayson Halton, David Stone, Ashton Sanders. We saw some there too. So you feel good there. But again, these needs are all kind of fluid based on how everything plays out over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, so it's going to come down to those end of the year conversations with everybody. Where are you going? I mean, obviously there's a lot of speculation about what happened with the Dylan Gabriel conversation and things like that. OU has to really get that right this time. Like, know what his intentions are before you make a decision in the portal.
And I'll say a lot of eyes on quarterback, like we said, and we'll continue to monitor that. They're already, like I said, on the website, SoonersIllustrated.com. If you're a VIP member, specific names that we have coming to town, names to watch coming up, subscribe and keep up with all that. I will probably get into some of that with Colin on the Thursday show as far as some specific names that Oklahoma is courting and getting into town this week. So keep an eye for that on the Thursday show. We'll continue to talk a lot of portal over the next several weeks. Obviously, as it's everything right now as you try to get that roster where it needs to be going to 2025. As far as this season, there is one more game to be played. We now know that game will be the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, Texas, against Navy. This is something. I mean, I guess you go 6-6. This is about right for a season that Oklahoma had. They're going to play a bowl game in TCU Stadium, which is just funny, even of itself. Obviously, we'll have time to talk about the actual game. We'll have a game preview like we always do whenever we get closer. It's still almost 3 weeks away from when this thing actually kicks off on December 27th. But initial thoughts for you guys here. I mean, I don't know. It's a lower end bowl game. I mean, it's convenient for OU fans. I mean, it's just 2.5, 3 hours down the road from Norman. Not exactly the most glamorous bowl by any means. And they're going to be solid favorites to try and get a win and get above 500 to end the year. Thoughts for you guys just on this game and when it popped yesterday? Because there was some thought, Memphis was a trendy place for a while. Then Birmingham became a real possibility. Then we end up just going right down the road to Fort Worth.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy trip. They opened Oklahoma opened as 9-point favorites. Like you said, we'll preview the game more as it gets closer, but it is interesting. Oklahoma's run defense has been really good this year. Now they're going to be playing a triple option team, so it'll be strength against strength in that regard. Navy's 8-3, second American Conference team that they'll play this season after playing Tulane early in the year. Navy still has a game left this weekend against Army, so everybody will get it.
Yep.
If everybody wants to watch, they'll get a preview of Oklahoma's bowl opponent. But I thought it was interesting. Navy's head coach Brian Newberry, native of Moore, played at Westmore High, went on to Baylor. Talked to him yesterday on a Zoom call. He said his first college football game ever was 1985 Oklahoma Colorado homecoming game. 31-0 Oklahoma win, and that's when he decided that he wanted to play college football. So neat little tie in there. He still has family in OKC. I think he said he has a niece that just graduated from Oklahoma in the spring. He was a big Sooners fan growing up, so he's excited for that matchup. So at least there's a cool little connection there. But other than that, I mean, it's a mid-tier bowl game. What do you want?
Yeah, like you said, the triple option, like that's the little wrinkle that could add some things here. Obviously, the triple option, if they get that going, it's pretty hard to stop if you're not used to it. But the good part is, like you guys said, you get to watch them this weekend against Army-Navy game. You get to watch a little bit more Navy. And you also get a couple of weeks to prepare for that, formation. If you had the 1 week, then it's like, okay, that we really got to try to do something. But you got some time here. So to figure some things out to really stop them. And as you said, OU has a very good run-stopping defense. Now, depending on who's all out there, figure those things out with that as well. That all could throw a wrinkle in there. But it should be pretty fun, I think, in terms of it'll be a quick game. I mean, we know that because it's going to be running a lot on both sides of the ball. I feel like. Oh yeah. And OU is favored, so those should bode well for some OU fans. And it's right. A lot of OU fans are in Fort Worth area, so that's a good spot for them to have just to go and travel to. So. It's decent, I guess, in terms of what happened this year. I mean,
that's everyone. It's fine.
Yeah. I will say, worth noting that they do have two common opponents, so that they can compare film from those games. Oklahoma opened the season against Temple. Navy played them the next week. Oklahoma played Tulane early in the year. Navy played them, a few weeks back. So there are some common threads there that they can kind of pull from just in terms of watching game film and trying to plan for that. But when it comes to the triple option, man, you got to be disciplined.
Yep.
You got to be disciplined to stop that thing, or else it's gonna make you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Oklahoma fans will have a little scared of maybe of this service academy thing because they've in recent history had some tough goes with service academies. They've had Army in 2018, almost beat OU in Norman. That game went to overtime. And Air Force, several years before that came to Norman, gave OU a bit of a game. And not that it means anything for this, but OU 0-1 all time against Navy. 1965, 10-0. Navy beat Oklahoma in Norman, the one time they've met. So
the year after Roger Staubach was Navy's quarterback. So
year after. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, a rematch near 60 years in the making, and we'll have that in Fort Worth in a few weeks. Kind of it's a funny little matchup, I guess. I mean, we'll see. We'll have some time to talk about it too and get ready for it before it gets there. But look forward to that. And who does Oklahoma actually have on the field defensively? And that's another big question as we wait on some opt-outs and more portal, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Shifting over to a little bit of basketball before we wrap up, both teams are doing a lot of winning right now. I'll start with the women as per usual. James, they won huge yesterday at home. Not a shocker there. They're up to 10 in the AP poll. They took their first loss, that tough game to Duke, where they had that big comeback and they forced overtime. But they've played well since then, got a really big win in the ACC SEC Challenge.
Yep.
Last week over Louisville. I watched that game. Obviously, it was there in Kentucky. They're playing good ball. I mean, they're kind of been everything you want. I mean, they took that first setback with that loss and they've responded pretty well to it. So far, so good. How do you kind of assess how that team's playing right now? A little over a month into the season is, about what you'd expect. Where are you kind of at with that team right now?
Yeah, I asked Coach Danny Baranchek just about that because you lose against Duke down the stretch after you make a comeback and you just kind of fall apart in the overtime, section of the game. And then you do it against Louisville where you're down 17 points, and you come back in that fourth quarter and win the game. So you did everything right that time to officially win the game. And I asked Jenny Bronchek about that. And she was like, yeah, we just learned some things about ourselves and figured out, how to handle that situation. And that's the good part. You're seeing that growth after just a one-game stint, pretty much. And you take that win against Louisville, which is a ranked team. That's a very good win. And then you go against Alabama State. You're back home. And you set 3 program records in the first half. I mean,
what was it, 68 at halftime?
68 points, 11 three-pointers.
68.
And what was the other record? It was 22 assists in that first half. Like, it was bananas the way they played. And they just blew them out, 110 points for OU. I mean, it was just all around. I think their best performance of the year, just the way they handled everything and just put their foot on the gas and did not let up. Like, they were trailing 3-2. And that was it. One of our commenters said, we're another great comeback, huh? 3-2.
Yeah, 3-2.
So
no, they're playing good. They're playing good ball, obviously, and they have a little bit of time off. It's finals week, so both teams are off all week. They play again this weekend. Oral Roberts in Norman next Sunday. But then the big one after that, the following Tuesday in the Jumpman. So just a quick turnaround, just one day off. They play Michigan, who's in the top 20 right now, in the Jumpman. That's going to be interesting, and another test for them, and what'll be a neutral site game. So I look forward to seeing them, and obviously the big one hanging out there. They have Texas coming to Norman right at the beginning of SEC. I think it's the SEC opener.
That's the opener. Yep.
Yeah, right at the beginning of January. So some huge tests are coming up with this team playing well. They're a lot of fun to watch. So looking forward to the games getting better here coming up very, very soon. As for the men, Porter Moser squad, they followed up, Tom, the Battle for Atlantis championship with, they had turned on quick rest to play Georgia Tech. We were there, Floyd Noble Center on Tuesday night last week. Georgia Tech was down, a couple of key guys, including J.V. McCollum, but another strong performance, won that game going away. Then you had the McCaslin Fieldhouse game on Saturday night, a big offensive performance. Jeremiah Fears continues to be awesome. They're 9-0. They're up to number 13 in the AP poll. A lot to like right now. I mean, right, Tom? I mean, they got Bedlam coming up this week, so a chance to kind of rest up a little bit for what'll be a big game on Saturday night at the Paycom Center. But a lot to like with Porter Moser's squad. I mean, 9-0 is 9-0. You can't do any better than that. So far, so good.
Yeah, I mean, second straight season that they've started at least 9-0. Obviously, crazy. Last year 10-0 before losing to North Carolina in the Jumpman. We'll see. They beat Oklahoma State, then they'll be 10-0 going into the Jumpman again. Except this time it'll be Michigan instead of a de facto home game for North Carolina.
Yeah,
Michigan's still playing well right now too, so that'll be interesting. But look, they're one of 8 remaining undefeated teams in the country. One of 3 in the SEC, along with top-ranked Tennessee, and I think Florida's number 9 now. Playing well, playing better than a lot of people thought they would at this point in the season, even though, their big tests so far were in the in the Battle for Atlantis. Quad 1 win against Arizona, quad 2 wins against Providence and Louisville. The rest of their schedule's been quad 4. So it's not a strong resume outside of the Battle for Atlantis right now. Certainly the SEC will give them plenty of opportunities to build on that resume. And I still think a lot of people aren't going to be sold on this team until they see how it does in SEC play, just because of how we've seen the team fare in non-conference play so far under Porter Moser. But this is still a better start than I think a lot of people expected. Again, like you said, Jeremiah Fears, star in the making. Jalen Moore is taking that next step. He had another 20-point performance the other day. Don't like that you gave up 78 points, was it, to
they could not miss
Alcorn State?
It was crazy. Alcorn State was shooting the net off that thing at McCaslin.
Yeah, they started
about McCaslin.
12 of 16 from the field, including 7 of 7 from deep. I mean,
crazy.
Don't love that against a bottom 10 Ken Palm team, but but we've seen how good this defense can be, because you look at that Georgia Tech game a few days earlier where they, held them almost 9 full minutes of game time without a basket, and held them to just 27 points in the second half and no baskets during the final 5 minutes of the second half. Like, this team can clamp down defensively. That's what Porter Moser always prides itself on, except feel like I've said this a few times. The difference from what I've seen this year's team and last year's team is that this team has some certified bucket getters that you can go to when you need to. Jeremiah Fears, Jalen Moore, Kobe Elvis. I know he had a off game against Alcorn State, but he's shown that he can knock down some tough shots. So you like what you've seen from these guys so far.
Well, and where'd they play at last game? You said what was it called? Yeah, that's a great environment, by the way.
Really cool.
That looks pretty cool.
Really cool.
Look at the picture.
I just wish
last year and this year, just teams just shoot it great.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Different sight lines in there,
The depth is different.
Yeah, like I just wish that they could play a better team in McCaslin, because like last year it was Arkansas Pine Bluff. It was one of the worst teams.
Yeah,
this year Alcorn State, one of the worst teams. And I get like part of it is you have to have they have to agree to it, and it's hard to get a better opponent to agree to play in a small confined atmosphere like that. But that atmosphere is cool, man. Like
it is.
If the LNC ever needs some renovations and they need to move for a season, like just play all the games in McCaslin.
How many does it sit? Cool. Do we know?
I think it's like a few thousand.
Yeah, like 3,000,
5,000.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
They do like pretty much all students except for like a handful of like donors and stuff and season ticket holders. But it's student appreciation game. They had some cool T-shirts for it, balloons to wave around and try to distract teams and the opposing team and stuff like that. It's just a cool little cozy environment.
Yeah, for sure. And no, they're playing really well. Like you kind of mentioned, the elephant in the room is that we did this last year, and that's really the only knock. It's not even a knock, but that's the only thing that you can really say to kind of be the negative guy, if you want to be, is that we did this last year. They were 10-0. They were in the top 10. It looked great. And then Big 12 play kind of, the grind of it got to them, and they lost too many games on the stretch and missed the tournament. Now, I think this team's better. I think, Tom, you think this team's better.
I also think the SEC is better than what the Big 12 was last year.
The SEC is insane. The SEC completely destroyed the ACC in the SEC-ACC Challenge. 14-2.
Yeah.
The two losses were Kentucky and Auburn.
Yeah.
Or like maybe the two best teams in the SEC. So
and then yesterday, Missouri just like blew the doors off with number one Kansas. And Missouri's
one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I do think this team is good. I think they're better than last year. I think this is Porter Moser's best team. The guard play, Jeremiah Fears, is legit like first round NBA draft pick right now. But you can't help it. You have to just be in wait and see until we get a little bit later, because we've done this. We did this literally last year. So that's kind of the unfortunate part. And we knew that going into the year, like until they get to late January or February and they're still doing this.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be cautious, and that's kind of the way it is. But they're playing well, and a fun game this weekend with Bedlam. Look forward to that. It's going to be Saturday night at the Paycom Center. Cool they're able to continue Bedlam, and that'll be a really cool atmosphere. Another test, because OSU's playing pretty well right now. They've got a couple of nice Power 5 wins for them the last couple of weeks. They just beat Seton Hall yesterday. Nice solid win for them there. So we'll see what happens this weekend. It's going to be fun. Both teams are playing well. 2 top 15 teams in Norman right now with the women's team and the men's team. Pretty cool. I think that's it. Obviously, we'll have a lot more portal stuff consistently over the next several weeks. Like I said, it's a great time to become a VIP member for lots of portal intel over on SoonersIllustrated.com, Oklahoma247sports.com. We'll be back on Thursday for the recruiting show with Colin. A lot to talk about there, especially with some portal targets. So I would suggest everyone tune into that show. The schedule for this week, as far as like football standpoint, we're going to get to talk to Brent Venables and players. It looks like on Friday afternoon. So keep an eye out for that as we kind of start to shift into bowl preparation. And then obviously the bowl game's on the 27th. I think the media day is scheduled for the day before. So we'll have some football kind of a press conference interview, that type of stuff over kind of scattered throughout the month of December. But we're not going anywhere, obviously, with lots of stuff to talk about throughout the next several weeks as we finish up this 2024 calendar year and get ready to flip things over to 2025. I think that's it for now. Like I said, we're back on Thursday with Colin Kennedy for the recruiting show. For Tom Green, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway signing off for now. We'll see you next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.